produce a single half-shell oyster for the half-shell market that was a lot more hardier, that could withstand the harvest methods, that could withstand the processing and the shipping, arrive on the other side of the world in a condition that the end user would have an opportunity to experience what it's truly like to eat a fresh, live oyster from Washington State. To develop a new farming method, it's not an easy task. It takes a lot of time, and it is very expensive. The smallest little changes that you make or take away from your system could produce huge problems and challenges, especially when you try to scale it up. So what we started to develop was what's better known as a flip bag system, if you will. A typical flip bag system that we set up is typically 150 feet long. Each line has 40 bags per line. We use posts every 6 feet to support the line. The horizontal line running across is 1/4 inch. It's a 1/4 inch am steel rope that has a minimum breaking strength of 6,700 pounds. Each post, this is one of the old posts that we started using. Each post has an anchor next to it with a 1/2 inch nylon rope that's tied to the pole that keeps the system from floating and getting away from it. In 2007, we first started testing this system in 2 locations. One site in Willapa Bay, the other site was in Sandwich Bay. The line construction, again, back when we first started, we used this is a 7/8 inch fiberglass fence post. They were 5 feet long. We put them into the ground 3 feet. And so when we finally got all said and done, what does it cost to set up one flip bag line? For your materials cost, the cost of all your rope, the cost for your bag, the cost for your buoy, your total cost to do one line is about $600. The labor cost that we spend to build the bags, to put together the buoys, to make the anchors, it costs us about $75 per line in labor. The cost to install it, about $75. We pay our crews piecework to go out and they get paid per line. They go out and install the poles, and install the anchor. So total your first setup cost is right at about $750. To seed it, that's going to roughly cost you about $150. I pay $132 to Art Flubsy. That's kind of an intercompany price. Somebody from outside the company might pay a higher price than that. The labor it takes to split it. I mean by when we first start planting our bags, we'll load up the bags with roughly 300 oysters per bag, and about 3 to 4 months into the growth, we'll take the oysters out, split it, and we'll drop our densities down to 150 animals per bag. And then your harvest costs, we pay our guys a piece rate to go out and to harvest the lines. And so your total annual cost, once you get set up, is about $200 a line. So to get started in this, and to buy all your materials, your seed, your labor, to do this, you're going to be about $1,000 into it. Our annual revenue, one of the things that makes this system work is the premium price you get for the oyster. When you can produce that oyster that's got that nice hard shell, extended shelf life, and a nice plump meat, you can command a higher price. And so the return, the other thing that makes this work is the survival of your seed. When you put your oysters in a bag like this and you flip it, typically you can get 95% return. So as you can see, your first startup cost for your seed, you're about $1,000 into it. Your first year, if you have the right market set up, you can get your money back and then some.
Is that gross or net?
That's gross. Planning to harvest, when you set up a market that wants the oyster that you just, that special oyster you just produced, they're going to want that product every week, 52 weeks out of the year. And so what we had to do is we had to come up with a way that you can grow that product and supply that market every week, week in and week out. And so the way to do that is our planting cycles. We'll start planting in the spring, roughly March. We'll start as early as March, and we'll plant month of March. We'll load up bags month of April, and all the way through until we get to September, about September. By the time your first seeding is about 3 months old, we've got crews that goes back and they take those bags off, they dump the oysters out, they split them, rebag them, put them in a clean bag, and rehang them. Harvesting, typically it takes that whole process from the time you load the bags, flip them for 3 months, split them out, rehang them. It's about 9 months. And between 9 to 12 months, you'll have a product ready to go. What your product looks like is a nice tumbled oyster. It's nice and smooth. The meat fills up the entire shell. And it's got a nice deep cut. This type of product, you can, through our harvest practices, it can go through our processing facility, get thrown in a box, shipped halfway around the world, and when our customer gets it, they open it up and they got an oyster that's full of liquor, and it's and they get to enjoy the same experience that you and I do here in the Northwest.
Eric,
Yep.
do you rebag them because they get too big or too many in a bag, or why do you rebag them?
There's a couple reasons why we rebag them. We start out with high densities in the springtime, mainly due to the barnacle sets. If you get barnacles all over your product, it's not going to be the perfect product. And so what happens when you have those high densities in the bag, and that bag is flipping, if there's any sort of barnacles that set on that with oysters just hitting against each other, it keeps your barnacle set off.
Question? Another question?
Yes.
I'm sorry. The tide height that you focus your lines on?
Very critical. It's very critical. If you get your line set up too high, then what you end up with is these little marbles that's not working. If you get your line set up too low, too deep, the oysters will grow faster, then they can tumble, and what you end up having is an oyster that looks like something you grow on the beach that has no higher value to it.
Oh, okay.
So there's a sweet spot, especially in Willapa Bay, where you can set those lines up and get a nice tumbled oyster.
And you're not going to tell us what that is?
It's
proprietary.
Yeah. So I'm more than happy to share that. Another thing that we take very seriously is this product we're producing is, for all intents and purposes, is consumed raw. And so in the summer months, we take we have very strict Vibrio parahemolytic controls with our harvesting. For example, Bay Center harvest area, that's where the largest part of our Shigoku farm is. And by the way, Shigoku is the name that the company gave this, which in Japanese means the ultimate. Anyway, yeah, in Bay Center, the Department of Health, their Vibrio control plan is from the month of June to September. We have 7 hours to get that product to temperature. From the time we harvest it, we got 7 hours. Our guys, I give them 60 minutes. We got 1 hour. We monitor the water temperature. We have a device that constantly monitors our water temperature, so we know what that water temperature is. If in the summertime the water temperatures get too high, they start getting into the mid-60s, I make the harvest crews go out in the middle of the night when the water temperatures are lower to harvest and get it on ice.
Question.
Yes.
When this fat that you use so that you can harvest in the summer months, is that what they call the diploid?
A triploid.
A triploid.
Yep. Triploid oysters are what we typically use to seed up the bags. It's the diploid oysters are normal oysters. The triploid, the chromosomes, you made them with a tetracoil and a diploid, you get an oyster that in the summer months it doesn't produce spawn or eggs, and you get a nice firm oyster. So when you go to site in an area, there's a lot of things that you got to take in consideration. You got to do a site survey. You got to look. One of the main things you got to look at is your current direction. You go out and you don't want to be crossways to the current, because what you'll do is you'll end up getting sedimentation problems on your bed. We made this mistake and had to tear down our lines and turn them. Of course, you want to look at tidal heights, and you also want to look at prevailing winds. Prevailing winds is absolutely critical. You would think that the flipping of the bag is what creates that nice, tough, round little oyster. It has plays a portion in that, but what's more critical is wind. When the tide is in and the bag is up like this, and I've got some video of it in the spring, but if you have a windy day and the water's choppy on top, your bag underneath the water is constantly doing this. And that's what makes that nice, rounded Shigoku. Other things you want to look for is your property boundary, fattening bed. If you've got a bed that it's fattened, that's great. If you've got a bed that's kind of on the verge, you can still fatten them. And of course, you want to look at boat traffic and all kinds of different things that's happening around your bed. This particular photo is a screenshot of a computer program that I use. We go out and I'll design the systems and lay them out on the map. And then once I got it all set, we've got our scow lane set up. Then I transfer this back onto a GPS, give it to our crews, and they know exactly where to go punch it in.
Eric,
Yes.
do you also look for the things, the mud, how if there's growing shrimp, or if you're nearby a bed with growing shrimp, and how would that affect your post?
We do look for burrowing shrimp. If there are shrimp on the bed, it's not too big of a deal, but if you have a lot of shrimp on your bed, then it becomes a problem with your crews being able to work. You definitely want to look for that. There's another part of our operation that the flip bag comes in handy, and that's for boosting single oyster seed. Another part of our operation is we'll grow single oysters for the live market. We'll get our seed from our hatchery nursery. Typically it comes down to us at about 12 millimeter in size, little single oysters. Historically, farmers within our company, they'll take the 12 millimeter seed, they'll take it out, they'll spread their beds with it, and historically the best return I've ever got doing that farming method was about 40% return. A couple years ago, I thought, well, I'll run them through boot camp. And so I loaded up some seed, flipped it for 3 to 4 months. I took one group, 12 mil seed, planted it straight from our Biloxi onto one bed. And then the second group, I put them in bags, flipped them for 4 months, put them on the bed next to it, tracked them both all the way to harvest. The group that was in the bags and flipped for 4 months, I ended up with 93% return on our singles. So this has become a big part of our flip bag operations. And this particular bed in this photo, it's all single oysters produced from the bags.
Question,
Yes.
where did this idea come from, the bagging? Is this something you came up with, or?
There was a grower, from what I understand, in Puget Sound that was kind of playing with the idea, and so we we took that idea and we kind of modified it to work for us. And then the idea to use their bags to boost seed, I was up in Canada a few years ago and I was seeing the survival numbers they were getting, and I said, I can do this with our bags. Yes.
You said you achieved 93% survival with this method, and you compare it side by side?
Yes.
What was the survivability of the control?
40%.
40.
Yeah, 40%. And typically what happens is you get that 12 millimeter seed, you plant it on the ground, the crabs are going to take their toll on it. If you put them in a bag and you flip them for 3 or 4 months, you get this nice hard oyster, nice hard little oyster that can withstand predation. And the other thing that really helps, I believe, is it's in the summer months is when your seed is coming out of your nurseries, and that's also the time when your predators are more prevalent and more active on your beds. At that time, we put the seed in the bags. They're nice and protected in the bag. We wait until the winter time before we take the seed out of the bag and plant on the beds. Because in the winter times, most of your predators, they took a vacation to Cleveland or something like that, so it really helps. Another thing we notice is, and this is just an observation that we've seen, is there's some sort of physiological change that happens when you take your seed and you put it in a bag and you flip it for 4 months. We'll plant it on the ground that winter. That following summer, you will have virtually no mortality in your beds. No mortality. There's been a lot of times, I've experienced this in other parts of farms. You get your seed, you plant it. Every summer, you'll get some sort of mortality, especially with triploid oysters. If you put it in a bag and you flip it, I'm not sure what happens, but that very first summer, following a dump out, your mortality rate is virtually 0. Some development challenges. There's a lot of different items that we're looking at as far as further developing this method. This was an old method of how we harvested. This was a video shot a few years ago where the guys would go out and they would drop the lines and they would pull them up one by one. And I can tell you this is a very physically demanding way to harvest. Now our guys, they like to go out when the tide is about 2 feet over the beds. The bags are laying on their side, and it's very easily for these guys to take the bags off the line, they bundle them up, and they can drag them to the boat. This also allows our crew to work instead of going out during the night tides, that they could work in the winter months, they can work during the day. We're looking at different ways to mechanize in our installation of our lines. When we first started, we had the old fence post and pounding our lines in. That didn't, it wasn't very long that we come up with this idea to get our posts in. Some other things that we're really taking a hard look at is really beefing up our lines. One of the things that we were having problems with in the past is we weren't getting our anchors very deep. You really need to anchor your system well. The anchors that we use are 1/4 inch high density plastic. We cut them in 5x8, and then we attach a 1/2 inch rope. When we first began putting these, the guys, they'd hammer them in like 2 feet. You really got to get them in. You get your anchors in, you have a nice, secure system. Again, we're trying to, this is a machine one of our managers came up with back in the day. The way we clean the barnacles off the bag is by hand, and so a lot of these different pieces of equipment that we need, we're basically having to develop them ourselves. We're also looking at different ways, of how we can attach the bags to the line. This was an idea that I came up with one night, trying to think of a way that we can attach those bags without using the bar locks. And this is a reusable clip. This is still in a development stage, but the idea is it's kind of like an S hook, and you actually have to bend the bag to get the bag on the clip. And then once it's on, it's nice and solid. But yeah, there's a lot of different things that we're looking at to beef up our lines. And one of our biggest things that we're looking at is just securing your equipment and coming up with a very robust system. Back when we first started, I think in 2008, we thought, well, we better get start looking at some of the environmental impacts that flip bags may have on the environment. We hired Confluence to look at the very beginning some eelgrass studies. How does flip bag farming impact eelgrass? We looked at shading studies, growth studies, current flow studies, chlorophyll studies, and what I can tell you is we have the data, and the impacts were minimal, but the data at this point, the company doesn't feel like it's ready to lay that out in the public. It's available. We shared it with the other growers, but we just got to be careful with what we present. Future developments. This is a system that we're currently working on. This is what we call a POLA system. Where basically, you have your horizontal line here, and you'll have a buoy attached to the line, and then the buoy that's attached to your bag is actually tethered. I think we tether about 18, 20 inches. So, and then your line is anchored, and it's tied off at roughly 12 to 16 inches. So that when the tide comes in, the line will float, and this float will come up and your bag still hangs down. And as the tide keeps coming in, your line will stop at 12, 14 inches. This float will continue to rise and will flip you back. We've seen some pretty good results with this. We're still working to develop this. This would give us access to go into those areas that might be a little bit deeper, where you can adjust your anchor lines to the height to get your desired growth that you're looking for. And then we're also looking at, for our bottom mulch beds, where we grow our shuck oysters. The age-old way that you brew your shuck is you either caught your natural set in the southern part of the bay, or you set your mulch bags. We're looking at other methods to set the larvae on different mediums, and then stripping that larvae off, putting it in a bag and boosting it, and using that seed for planting our mulch beds. And again, we're continuing to expand our ability with our seed boosting beds, so that we can take smaller seed from a fluff seed instead of 12 mil. If we can take even smaller seed, it saves the farmers a lot of cost. So what are the pros and cons of flip bag farming? So the pros, seed survival is excellent. You're looking at 95% return on your seed. And you get a higher, you can command a higher price for your product. And your crop rotation to grow from 12 mil seed to a Shigoku size oyster, which is roughly about 65 gram weight. You can do it in 9 months, 9 to 12 months. And you have a potential to farm on some marginal ground. These two items right here, your seed survival and your high product value, is what makes this system successful. Some of the cons is labor intense. It is very labor intense. If 10 guys walked through that door today and said he was looking for a job, I'd take them all today.
If I got them first.
In our main Shigoku farm, we've got one crew that the only thing they focus on is harvesting. We got another crew of 4 or 5 guys. Only thing they work on is maintaining the gear and installing lines. We got another crew that they constantly out there splitting seed and rehanging it. And just as soon as they get done doing that, they start loading up more seed. Gear cost. Putting a robust system together, you can't cheap out on your gear. You got to get the right gear, because if you don't, it'll wind up in Japan. Tracking your inventory. We get our seed down from our nursery systems, and we get a group down of sometimes 500,000 to 1 million. They'll be in one set of lines, and then when it comes time to split them out, you got lines over here available and lines over here available, and next thing you know, it's real difficult tracking your families as they move through your system. And then the potential to lose gear in storm. That's a big one for us. That's one that it's an issue that we've been working tirelessly to get it down to 0. And we've got a lot of great ideas how to do that. Yep.
Well, I just drove around from Tokyo this morning, and the tide was out. You guys have some beds over there between North River and Tokyo? With bags?
Yes.
Okay, I'm curious, when you put those in, are you looking to be in the current, will the line be crossways in the current, or the prevailing winds?
We want to put those in with the current flows, which at first we thought, okay, we'll set them up with the wind, but the wind helps, but what's more importantly, you have to set them up with the current flow so that your current can flow in between your lines.
Question.
Yep.
About your higher product value, talking about exporting all these, what's the breakdown between your local market and shipping them all around the country or the world?
What's the breakdown of these?
Yeah, like 50-50 or?
I would say, yeah, probably 50-50. But there's from my understanding, speaking with our sales team, that there's some, the market share is huge in Asia, and so, yeah. For a Shigoku, and then there's another size that we grow beyond a Shigoku that we call a fat bastard, and then the Grand Cru. If we can get that bigger size, we can really demand a higher price.
What's going to happen when you start getting a lot higher transport costs? And you know what's going to come.
When we start getting other competition,
No, higher
Higher
transportation.
transport costs.
that's a good cost. That's a good question. Good question. Yes.
I have 2 questions. One, I think I can kind of answer for myself. How does this system withstand eelgrass when the eelgrass is drifting around in late summer, when it naturally breaks off the native eelgrass?
It does
Is that
okay.
much of a problem for that
No,
system?
it's not too much of a problem.
And the other question is, how's the durability of the system from crop after crop? Can you reuse those bags for several years before they break down too much?
Absolutely. We actually, the bags, our whole system, I think we've got a lifespan of about 10 years. As a matter of fact, this year we're going back through some of our initial lines that we set up. We knew the mistakes we made and going back and building those lines. The bags we get anywhere from 10 to 12 years out of the bag.
So if I find them on the beach, I should drag them back to the local dock and
If you find a bag or a buoy on your beach, we actually have a buyback program. There's a lot of guys on Washaway Beach, the word's out, say, hey, if we find a buoy or whatever, bring it back and we'll pay you for it.
I find the whole line.
Any requirements for core permit to
Yes.
to fill in navigable water?
I'm not sure about the fill, that's,
I think they consider it filled. I mean, they don't, okay.
yeah.
So no need for core permit or?
We have core permits, like you wouldn't believe.
But it's
Yeah.
not, they don't consider this fill.
Okay.
Yeah.